Good morning everybody, Schleyer here, and today I wanted to bring you a video on some updated graphic settings for the 12.12.30 patch. Here are my settings if you just wanted to see what I normally play at, and we will go in a little bit deeper onto why I'm doing certain things, but I don't want to take up too much of your time. So I play on 1440p, and normally I play on just full screen, but if you're an alt-tabber, you may want to do borderless just for the ease factor, and sometimes full screen does like to have issues when you alt-tab. Texture quality set to high just so everything looks as best as it can. That is the highest it can go. Shadow quality on low. Doing this will just give you more shadow depth instead of making shadows go away. So if you're trying to think about getting rid of those really dark shadows, those are just kind of baked into the game at the moment. The only way to really get rid of that is through gamma, and we'll talk about some of the Nvidia settings in a little bit. Object LED quality, I just have 3 or 2.5. Either or really is fine, but if I can get things a little bit sharper, I like the look of that just for the depth quality. Overall visibility I have set to 1000. Usually I don't really care what's off into the distance. 1000 renders enough into the distance to make me feel like I'm in a world, so that's one that you can totally do with on your own. Anti-aliasing set to TAA instead of TAA high, because that does give a little bit smoother and a more blurry to my eye. I also use anisotropic filtering on per texture, so that kind of balances out and gives it a little more sharpness. HBAO, which is ambient occlusion, I just have those turned off so I don't have more shadows being put into the game. SSR, which is screen space reflections, so like the beautiful reflections on water. I just have this turned off because it does take a pretty big hit to your FPS. And then they did update Nvidia Reflex low latency, which is awesome. I just have that set to on, and on plus boost will utilize your GPU even more. So if you're trying to do streaming or recording like I'm doing now, you may not want that on. Sharpness is another preference. You may want to have this up a little more or a little less, depending on your PostFX as well. And at the bottom here, these are more like filmic style filters. Z-blur is just giving, if you have an AR, you'll see a little bit of a blurriness at the butt of your gun, which is kind of cool. And then grass shadows is the one thing that I found making shadows actually look good on grass, which makes the grass actually textured and kind of stands out more instead of just kind of flattens and looks really weird under the ground. So I do prefer to have grass shadows on. And we will dive into my post effects when we go into the game. So we're at the new Lighthouse expansion, and we're going to go over some of my post effects, but first I wanted to go over my Nvidia control panel settings because I do have a couple things tweaked. Like everybody knows, all of our monitors are different. I have a Dell TN panel that's like 27 inches, 1440p. I got it way back in the day. IPS panels are just a good mix of colors, just being really color accurate, and that's what I use for a lot of my video editing. So what I did was when I came into here, as you can see, if you look onto the side, the colors look a little different. And the reason being is I have a filter set on my display capture that gives me on my editing monitor, it gives me an identical view of what I'm seeing in game. So when I record and then I go in and edit, I don't really have to do any sort of post-production work, and I can easily go export it to YouTube, and then I watch things back on my phone and it looks just like I'm seeing in game. So I'm trying to give you guys the best visual representation of what I really want to see in the game. Again, it's not going to be perfect. I explained just kind of why I'm doing certain things. Just wanted to clarify. Unfortunately, we lost our summer day on Lighthouse, but here is my adjusted desktop color settings. These are actually settings I use all the time for this monitor. On my monitor settings for the monitor itself, I have my brightness set to 90% and my contrast set down to 75%. And then in here, I do play all my games like this. So I have my gamma set to 1.25. It may take out some of the blacks a little too much in some games, but the majority of games these days have gamma settings to adjust. So I'll usually just adjust in those games specifically, but for YouTube, everything else that I do on this monitor, it is a good setting. And then this setting is very washed out in terms of color, so I do have to have a 65% digital vibrance boost. And now let's look at my post effects. As you can find in the settings, you can go right next to graphics is post effects. You can do a visualize, and you are able to actually see what the game looks like with post effects on or post effects off. Of course, I really wanted a sunny day, which is unfortunate. We were literally here for sunny days, but as you can see, just enabling post effects on and off will change the look of the game. And as you can see with it off, a lot of this over here, like if you're looking at the bush, is probably visual clarity, a little bit of the saturation, and then I also use a color grade, which you don't have to use. It's not much intensity, but as you can see, this is what the color grade looks like off. And then if you wanted to really turn it on, this is kind of like the vibes you're going to get out of it. It gives it a lot more contrastiness. So I just like to have that set to around 20. But yeah, the saturation, I just bumped just a hair just to get a little bit more of the saturation out of it, because the game just needs just that little bit of a touch. Clarity is probably the biggest kicker to being able to see things off in the distance a lot easier. As you can see, it does add a little bit more shadowy depth, but a lot of things are able to stand out a lot more. So hopefully that can be balanced in a way where it doesn't add too much shadows. You may need to adjust gamma a little bit more, and then adding a little bit of luma sharpening around 50 gives a little more sharpness to the image. And that's pretty much my PostFX. It's very simple. If we go inside, we can go look at some of these things here too. All right, so here's like a darkish little hallway. As we can see, my gun is pretty lit up, and then there's a big wheel right here. So we can just kind of like put the light over here and look at the wheel and just kind of see what happens when PostFX are turned on. Though I think it'll probably be in the way. Okay, well, we can kind of see some of the wheel. So if we just take PostFX and turn it off, turn it on, you can see the visual clarity just is kicking in really well. And like I said, you may get a slight bit more of the gamma control when you don't use as much clarity. But again, I think it actually just stands out so much more that even if it is a little bit darker, it honestly doesn't make much of a difference, because the washed out look almost makes it look like there's like a film over your eyes. And since I can't actually show any sort of visual changes when I apply my Nvidia control panel settings, I'm just going to take a few screenshots of what it would look like before and after using just nothing, and then using my Nvidia settings plus PostFX. So I hope that video wasn't too confusing for you guys. Again, it's a lot of just tinkering around of your own and making sure you can find a good setting for you, specifically because all of our monitors and our eyes are all different and we want to see different things, and I totally get that. This was just hopefully just enough just to give you going and give you a good head start on finding something you enjoy for this wipe. If you like these kind of videos, definitely give it a like, subscribe, and comment down below on what your settings are so we can maybe get a little catalog of what everybody's using, and hopefully get everybody having a good time in Tarkov. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next video, and have a good one. Peace.